23% weight loss should have been a clear win. Instead, it became a pivot point in the evolving race to treat obesity. Earlier this week, Novo Nordisk reported results from a major head-to-head trial of its new generation GLP-1 therapy. And while the treatment delivered powerful weight loss, it fell short of expectations. Not against placebo, not against older standards of care, but against tirzepatide. That distinction matters because for the very first time we are seeing new obesity treatments judged not simply on whether they work, but on how they compare to each other. That's a sign the field is maturing, but it also changes how success is defined. My name is Christopher Durham. If you're new to our channel, welcome to the Downsized. My wife Lorraine and I are just a suburban couple who began using GLP-1s to treat the disease of obesity, and together we've lost more than 150 pounds. That experience led us to start this channel, to talk honestly about what these medications are, what they do, and what's coming next in the real world for real people. Our goal isn't to speak in medical jargon or investor language. It's to take developments like this and explain what they actually mean in everyday terms. So what does it mean to you and I, the people using these medications? Before we get into today's story, a quick reminder. I'm not a doctor. We're not doctors. This is not medical advice. These are serious prescription medications, and the best way to use them safely is under the guidance of a qualified healthcare professional. And if you find this kind of real-world explanation helpful, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Earlier this week, Novo Nordisk shared results from the Redefine 4 trial. This was an 84-week phase 3 study comparing its next-generation therapy, Cagrisema, against tirzepatide at a 15 milligram dose, so Zepbound and Mounjaro. A phase 3 trial simply means late-stage testing in large groups of people, the type of study designed to determine whether treatment truly works before regulatory approval. This particular study enrolled 809 adults living with obesity and at least one related health condition, or what clinicians refer to as a comorbidity, such as hypertension, sleep apnea, or type 2 diabetes. Participants entered the trial with an average body weight of 114.2 kilograms, roughly 251 pounds. They received either Cagrisema, a fixed-dose combination of 2.4 milligrams cagrilintide and 2.4 milligrams semaglutide, or tirzepatide at 15 milligrams, both administered once weekly by subcutaneous injection. This was also an open-label study, meaning both participants and investigators knew which treatment was being used. Basically, the patients were using the Zepbound pens, so the pen is very obviously branded with the trial. Even if you take the brand off, this pen is very obvious. After 84 weeks, the results showed meaningful weight loss in both groups. Looking first at ideal conditions, meaning participants who stayed on treatment throughout the study, people taking Cagrisema achieved an average weight loss of 23%. Those taking tirzepatide achieved 25.5%. Now that's the highest weight loss we've seen from tirzepatide in trials to date. But clinical trials don't only look at best-case scenarios. Researchers also evaluate what's called the treatment regimen estimate, a way of modeling what happens when real life intervenes. Missed doses, dose delays, people stopping treatment. Under that more realistic lens, Cagrisema showed 20.2% weight loss. Tirzepatide showed 23.6%. The main goal of the trial, known as the primary endpoint, was not to prove Cagrisema was better. It was simply to demonstrate that it worked at least as well as tirzepatide. This is called a non-inferiority objective. In plain terms, Novo wasn't aiming to win. It was aiming to hold the line. But the study did not meet that goal. Now, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But I'll tell you, the percentages are so close there, I would personally say they met the goal. I would be happy to take either one of these medications. Novo stated directly, the trial did not achieve its primary endpoint of demonstrating non-inferiority on weight loss for Cagrisema compared to tirzepatide after 84 weeks. And that matters because heading into this trial, Novo's leadership had suggested that matching tirzepatide was the baseline expectation, with the possibility of superiority as the upside. In other words, this wasn't meant to be a long shot. It was meant to be competitive. Instead, the therapy missed even that floor. Novo's chief scientific officer, Martin Holst-Lang, addressed the outcome in the company's release. He said, "We are pleased with the weight loss of 23% for Cagrisema in this open-label trial." That statement reflects an important nuance, because while the trial did not meet its comparative goal, the absolute level of weight loss remains clinically meaningful. What makes this result especially interesting is not just the number itself, but the way the therapy works. And that takes us to the biology behind it. Cagrisema is not simply a stronger version of an existing therapy. It represents a different biological approach. The treatment combines two mechanisms: semaglutide, which works through the GLP-1 pathway, we know it as Wegovy and Ozempic, and cagrilintide, which works through the amylin pathway. GLP-1 helps regulate appetite by increasing satiety, in simple terms, helping people feel full. Amylin plays a completely different role. It slows gastric emptying and influences hunger signals. Together, these mechanisms can help people feel fuller, sooner, and stay satisfied longer. This combination reflects a broader strategic question now emerging in obesity treatment. What happens when therapies move beyond a single hormone pathway? Tirzepatide built its success with two hormones, GLP-1 and GIP. Cagrisema explores whether pairing GLP-1 with amylin might unlock a different metabolic effect. So this isn't just an attempt to match what already exists, it's an exploration of an alternative treatment and alternative pathway. Novo's Chief Scientific Officer Martin Holst-Lang emphasized this perspective in the press release. Cagrisema has the potential to be the first GLP-1 amylin combination product to reach the market for people living with obesity, documenting that cagrilintide adds to the existing benefits of semaglutide. That reflects a belief that combination biology, not just stronger versions of GLP-1 alone, may define the next phase of treatment development. Importantly, Novo is not treating the Redefine 4 result as the ceiling of what this approach can achieve. Holst-Lang added, "We look forward to the Redefine 11 readout and the initiation of the higher dose Cagrisema trial, which are both designed to assess the full weight loss potential of Cagrisema. A higher dose study using 2.4 milligrams of semaglutide paired with 7.2 milligrams of cagrilintide is expected to begin in the second half of 2026. That signals Novo believes the current results may not represent the full potential for the medications. From a safety standpoint, side effects observed in Redefine 4 were consistent with what has been seen across the GLP-1 class. The most common adverse events were gastrointestinal in nature. Most were mild to moderate, and according to Novo, they diminished over time. Redefine 4 is not a standalone effort. It sits with a broader Phase 3 program involving approximately 4,600 adults across multiple trials. Cagrisema was submitted to the FDA in December 2025 based on earlier pivotal studies. A regulatory decision is expected in late 2026, with the hopes of launching soon thereafter. And additional data from Redefine 11 is anticipated in the first half of 2027. This trial wasn't just a scientific moment. It was a market moment, and the reaction was immediate. Following the announcement, Novo Nordisk shares fell by approximately 15%. At the same time, Eli Lilly shares went up, rose by about 3.5%. Analysts interpreted the outcome as reinforcing the leadership of Eli Lilly and their dual hormone therapy, tirzepatide. In their view, the results suggested that GLP-1 GIP combinations may continue to set the benchmark for weight loss performance, at least for now. But the significance of this readout goes beyond a single trial. It arrives at a time when Novo has been working to reset after a challenging period. The company has undergone leadership changes and workforce reductions, tied in part to softer than expected performance for Wegovy in certain markets. Against that backdrop, Redefine 4 carried a strategic weight. Matching tirzepatide would have validated Novo's next generation approach. Surpassing it would have shifted momentum. Missing non-inferiority leaves the competitive landscape largely unchanged, at least in the short term. Still, Cagrisema is only one part of Novo's broader pipeline strategy. The company is simultaneously advancing cagrilintide as a standalone therapy, zenagamtide, a dual GLP-1 and amylin candidate, and UBT251, an early-stage triple agonist targeting GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon. Taken together, these programs reflect a broader effort to explore multiple hormonal pathways rather than relying on a single mechanism. Novo emphasized this long-term perspective in its statement. The results in the Redefine program reinforce our commitment to transforming obesity care. So while this particular trial may not have shifted the competitive balance today, it remains part of a larger strategic effort to expand the biological toolkit available to doctors. This moment matters because it marks a shift in how progress in obesity treatment is being measured. For years, new therapies were judged against placebos. Did they work? Did they help people lose weight? Did they improve metabolic health? Now the question is different. Now the comparison is no longer between treatment and nothing. It's between treatment and treatment. That's a sign the field has moved forward. But it also raises the bar. Success is no longer defined simply by effectiveness. It's defined by differentiation. And that's where this trial becomes more nuanced. Cagrisema demonstrated substantial weight loss. 23% remains a clinically meaningful outcome. But in today's environment, performance is evaluated in context. And context now includes other highly effective therapies. So the conversation shifts not just does this work, but how does it compare? How does it differ? And who might benefit from it? Because in a mature treatment landscape, progress isn't always about replacing what's come before. Sometimes it's about expanding what's possible. And that leads directly to my perspective, the patient's perspective, because I want to step out of the analyst lens. Honestly, that's the least interesting one. I don't know that they really even get it. I want to share a patient's perspective. Because while some may look at this result and frame it as a setback, the view from the lived experience of obesity can be very, very different. From where many patients sit, success isn't defined solely by which therapy delivers the highest number. It's defined by whether or not they can gain access to something to help them. Right now, modern obesity treatment is largely shaped by two dominant options: Eli Lilly's tirzepatide and Novo Nordisk's semaglutide. That concentration limits flexibility, it limits personalization, and it can influence pricing dynamics in ways that affect real-world access. Essentially, they have a duopoly. Imagine going car shopping. I love the car analogy. If you've watched many, you've seen me use it many times. Imagine going car shopping and being told there's only 2 models available. Would that really solve for everyone's need? Or would it feel restrictive? Yet in many ways, that reflects the current state of obesity. Financial markets often interpret innovation through the lens of short-term performance. Each new therapy is expected to outperform the last. But from a patient standpoint, the equation is very different. Someone does not need to replace existing therapies to have value. It simply needs to become a viable option. 23%? Absolutely, it's a viable option. Obesity is not a uniform condition. People respond differently. Some struggle with persistent hunger, others with satiety, others with tolerability, others with long-term maintenance. A therapy that works through a different biological pathway may not surpass existing options across all metrics, but it may serve individuals who need something different. And that distinction matters, because progress in treatment rarely comes from a single perfect solution. It comes from an expanded set of tools. Each new therapy adds another pathway, another possibility, another chance for meaningful improvement. Each new therapy doesn't just expand the science, it expands what's possible in practice. Because more treatment options don't just help doctors tailor care, they also change the conversation around access. Today, coverage decisions often come down to what exists and what has been negotiated, not necessarily what is best suited to the individual. Imagine a future where a physician is choosing from a broader set of effective therapies instead of selecting between 1 or 2 dominant options. They can evaluate biology, health history, treatment goals, tolerance. They can look at your insurance and match the therapy to the person. Find one you can afford to take and stay on. Because the next question is, of course, cost. In that future, an insurance check might reveal multiple covered options instead of none. Today, if a patient's plan does not cover one of the 2 primary treatments, the path forward can be limited. It can be very expensive and force you to the cash market. But as the number of viable therapies grows, so does the potential for coverage flexibility. More options can create more negotiating leverage. More negotiating leverage can create more coverage pathways. And more coverage pathways can translate into real access. it can translate into you paying a copay of $500 a month. That's where the long-term impact of therapies like Cagrisema may ultimately be felt. Not only in clinical outcomes, but in how treatment becomes available in the real world. Before we wrap up, I'd like to hear from you. Does this announcement feel like a setback or a step forward? If your doctor had access to a new drug like this that worked differently, even if the overall weight loss looked similar, would you want that option available? How important is choice when it comes to treating obesity? Have you struggled with losing weight on semaglutide and tirzepatide and would love to have a third option? Would it matter to you if your doctor had more tools to work with, something that could be tailored to your biology and your needs? And let me ask you this. Have you run into a situation where you can't get your insurance to cover these drugs? Do you think having more available options would improve the chances of something being covered? So tell us, how are you thinking about this development? Are you excited by Cagrisema? If you found this helpful, please take a moment to like and subscribe so you don't miss future updates. And as always, you can find support, resources, and more information at thedownsized.org. My name is Christopher Durham, and we are The Downsized.